Another "see, I told you so." Remember the news last week from the Pew Research Center claiming they had data saying that more Mexicans were leaving the country than arriving, and that it was therefore nothing to worry about anymore. Illegal immigration, we have a net loss here, essentially, because yes, while there are a certain number of Mexicans and others arriving across the southern border, more are leaving. And my extraordinary memory kicked into gear, and I said, it seems like I've heard this story before. Like back in 2012, it seems like every presidential election year, I recall for recent times hearing news like this. That it turns out to be not true, and it's just made up to limit the damage and kind of take the illegal immigration table down a notch or two so that it doesn't engender such turnout. Well, right here I have data. Daniel Horowitz at conservativereview.com, appallingly dishonest Pew study on immigration trend from Mexico. If you want to know the depths of dishonesty and obfuscation that the liberal elite employ in order to distort the reality on any given issue, take a look at this Pew Research report on immigration from Mexico. Pew claims that migration from Mexico is down to such a point that there is net out-migration. That is to say, more Mexicans in America have died or gone back home than have returned or are coming. Media outlets from The Hill and Politico to the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal are breathlessly promoting the headline of this report as if it reflected the truth of the moment. Their broader message was, see, these right-wing nuts are going crazy about a border crisis when in reality there isn't one because we have zero net migration from Mexico. The problem is that Pew was using old data from 2009 to 2014. I was more right than I knew. They were recycling the same news that they used in 2012. They just repackaged it and updated it, and they added a couple of years, taking us to 2014, making it look like they had brand new news which confirmed. But, of course, they didn't reference the same story they did back in 2012. It was only my memory. But obviously Horowitz here at the Conservative Review had the same memory jog. And he says there is nothing new about this. Pew has been reporting on a number of occasions that in light of the recession, a number of illegal immigrants in Mexico have gone home. Now, the problem with this is, of course, that there isn't a recession if you listen to Obama. If you listen to Obama and the Democrats, we're in a robust recovery. Why? What's the unemployment rate now? 5%? 5.1%? You listen to the regime, and they're hyping all these new jobs that have been created. Well, if you didn't know any better, you'd think that we're smoking. And if you don't have a job, it's not because of anybody's fault and yours. You're just not on the bandwagon. You haven't gotten on the gravy train because, man, we're smoking out there. Where are you? Of course, that's not true. We have 94 million Americans not working. The unemployment rate really is 11 or 12% or maybe higher. There is no economic recovery, and so there's no reason for Mexicans to be going home because the economy's so bad. Except that it is bad, and Mexicans aren't going home. I mean, every premise in this story is phony. Pew has been reporting on a number of occasions that in light of the recession, a number of illegal immigrants in Mexico have returned home, but guess what? According to the most up-to-date census data, based on the current population survey, the CPS, there has been a massive spike in net migration from Mexico. It's actually up, and everybody knows this. Amidst news stories day after day about all the arrivals flooding the southern border, Pew wants to tell us that even with that, more are returning home, but there aren't any pictures of that. You ever seen any pictures of Mexicans leaving? Or not just Mexicans, any illegal immigrant leaving? You don't see the pictures of it. This isn't happening. Some maybe, but it's not mass like they're trying to point out here. But the Census Bureau just nukes the Pew Research Center data. That's right. There's been a massive spike in net migration from Mexico since 2014, precisely after Obama and the Gang of Eight began encouraging illegal immigration in a number of ways. The fact that 80% of illegal immigrants are now officially shielded from deportation, and most others are unlikely to ever encounter resistance, has clearly contributed to the surge of new migrants. Intelligence reports based on interviews of illegal aliens bear out the growing perception that our policies incentivize illegal immigration. Yet the Pew people were dishonest enough to report this data as if it reflects the current reality, even though the current trend portends a political dynamic completely the opposite of that which they are trying to implant in this media cycle. And they'll succeed. With the Post having picked it up and the New York Times shortly and Politico, just like this phony Trump story, it's not going to be long before wherever you look that more Mexicans are leaving than arriving. And there's nothing to see here, and it isn't a big deal. And so you don't even need to worry about electing somebody who's going to deport them because they're deporting themselves. Don't sweat it. They're trying to take it off the table because they know it's a big turnout issue. So it's an effort to suppress Republican turnout and a number of other things. But as Mr. Horowitz writes here, the Pew Report actually proves every premise of the border hawks. The fact that some illegal aliens returned home following the recession demonstrates how the false choice between amnesty and mass deportation is a straw man argument. Mere passive economic disincentives from a recession were strong enough to entice illegal immigrants to go home. Imagine the effects of cutting off welfare and education benefits or jobs and unqualified birthright citizenship. This has been the point that we've been making. You don't need to deport a whole bunch of people. They'll go home on their own once you start enforcing current immigration law. This is the big point, I think, that's overlooked in this immigration debate every time it's brought up. There is this incessant need for Washington to do something. We've got to do something. It's a crisis. We've got to do something. We need comprehensive immigration reform. No. All we need to do is enforce the laws already on the books. It's already illegal to immigrate here illegally. Enforce every other law attached, and you won't have to deport anybody because then you really will have a net reduction in immigration. You eliminate the reasons, all of them. Those that want to come for work, not allowed to be hired. Those that want to come get in a safety net of a hammock, not going to have the payments for it. It's simple. The law is already there, or I should say the laws are already there. And the fact that they're there and being ignored proves that all of this is nothing more than a political issue for both parties, in their own ways trying to increase their own power at the ballot box. And for the Republican side, find a way to get cheaper employees in certain kinds of work. Anyway, just wanted to point it out, folks, because it's just all BS. There is not a net loss of immigrants in the United States. They're coming here in numbers continually greater than those who are deporting.